So, I'd like to do 4 things this evening in 50 minutes. Pray for me that I can accomplish all that. One of them is, in the city of Boston, Srila Prabhupada first arrived. And the celebration is going to be Tuesday morning. I'm sure there'll be some announcements of the details, but very simple. Prabhupada goes to Commonwealth Pier at 5 a.m. before he had to go to work, and little arti and ceremony of the time that Prabhupada arrived at the piers in Boston, and I'm sure some words of glorification of our founder Acharya. So in honor of that, Prabhupada's arrival in 2 days, I'm going to speak something. Now, if I had more time, what I was thinking to do is, I won't be able to do. I was going to ask, but you can at least think, we'll take a minute or a minute and a half. What does it mean to you, personally, of Prabhupada's arrival in America? Now, most of you weren't devotees at that time, in those early days, but the arrival of Srila Prabhupada in America, following the order of his spiritual master, has had a dramatic impact on many, 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 including each one of us, and far beyond each one of us. And the reason I'm asking this is, 2 years back, the boat festival with Prabhupada's arrival, there were a number of us riding in a boat in the harbor, and we were asked to speak, and I believe it was recorded, and I believe at least at some point it was available, maybe it still is, of what does it mean to you? What does it mean to each one of us speaking? And some amazing things were expressed. So it's something like when you have to write a Vyasa Puja offering, you have to look inside, and what does it mean to you? So ask yourself that question. Maybe when you go home, sit down in front of a piece of paper and look inside, and what does it mean to you? If we had more time, I would ask for some volunteers, but we're not going to have the time. I'll speak something, so this is part 2, speak something about our founder Acharya. Few things, perhaps outstanding is the scriptural verification of who Srila Prabhupada was in terms of the scripture. There's a reference in Bhavishya Purana that one day Senapati personality from the spiritual world will descend and bring this message of the Yuga Dharma to the rest of the world. Now, who that person is very clear, and who he was before as he was sent. At least that's our understanding. Many of us have that understanding. Perhaps you don't know, but during the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it wasn't just one person that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave the instruction to. The instruction to go to the West, deliver the message of Mahaprabhu, message of pure devotional service. It was a theme, and many persons, arrangements were made, elaborate arrangements were made that weren't successful. But one amongst the many made it successful. And he made it successful because, according to Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahe Tarapavartana. He was empowered by Krishna Shakti. You can't simplify it. You can't induce another person to chant the Maha Mantra unless you're empowered to do so. It's an empowerment, Krishna Shakti. What to speak of the empowerment of an historically unprecedented event. Never in the history of the religions of the world has anyone done what Prabhupada did. In the short span of 11 years, even during one's entire lifetime, to take a major religion and it becomes a worldwide phenomenon. It never happened before. It was on a morning walk one time with Srila Prabhupada, and he was describing what it means to represent Krishna. And when he said it this way: you see a spark, and then he held his hand like this, and you fan the spark. Not too much, but you fan the spark, and the spark becomes a flame. That is giving Krishna's mercy as his representative. Then he said, and sometimes the flame can become a big blaze. That is the empowered creature. His eyes got really big. And that was Srila Prabhupada. And what was the impetus? Of course, the impetus was the instruction of his spiritual master to do so. There's a little history behind this. There's several of them. One of them is Srila Prabhupada disclosed this to a group of devotees when 1974-ish, something like that, 73, 74. He had taken a group of devotees to Vrindavan, his European American disciples, and he was giving this seminar series on nectar of devotion in the back courtyard behind where Rupa Goswami's Bhajan Kutir and Samadhi are. I mean, now they have some construction there that wasn't there during the time. It was just a very simple arrangement. There's some photos of Prabhupada sitting there. And then later he would sit where his rooms were, now where the courtyard of the Radha Damodar temple was flooded with people, but it was very quiet. So the devotees were at his feet. And he explained that when he was in Vrindavan, he had the weight of this instruction of Bhakti Siddhanta to take the message of Lord Chaitanya. And he was to the Western English-speaking parts of the world, and he was feeling not capable, not qualified. You know, Vaishnava humility, natural, profound humility. Then while he was in Vrindavan at the Radha Damodar temple, in addition to the first canto Bhagavatam translation commentary, he was making a Bhagavad Gita commentary, which became a manuscript that later was stolen when he came to New York, and he had to do it again in the Bowery. He stole his typewriter and his Bhagavad Gita manuscript. But when he was making his Bhagavad Gita commentary, he got to the Bhagavad Gita verse 241, some of you know, Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kuru nandana muhushaka yanantasya, that verse. So in Baladev Vidyabhusan's commentary of that verse, he gives the explanation of how that single-minded intelligence, that's what Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha, Eka buddhi, singular intelligence, one thing. What's that one thing? Krishna should be pleased. Krishna bhakti. Krishna should be pleased. Krishna bhakti. Whatever you do, it's one thing. Life can be filled with variety. One thing. Krishna should be pleased. Now how does that come about? How can one get that? You don't get it Walmart, Kmart, or Target. You have to get it some other way. It's not a commodity that's commercial. It's something that comes by the mercy of the spiritual master. And Baladev says, by taking the instruction of the spiritual master as one's life and soul, that attainment can be reached. Prabhupada shared with the devotees, when I was making my Bhagavad Gita commentary, that instruction of Baladev went deep in my heart like a shaft, and I knew I had to go. He said it transported me across the Atlantic Ocean, that commentary of Baladev. And if you look at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, who is the Bhagavad Gita commentary dedicated to? Baladev. We owe a lot to Baladev Vijayagoswami, in addition to Prabhupada, whose words of Baladev carried him across the ocean to land in Boston Harbor and give us the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is Shuddha Bhakti. It's a very high message for a very unqualified audience. But that was the instruction. And he took the instruction as his life and soul. That's a nice saying. What does it mean, life and soul? You can't live without it. Your life is that. And without it, you have no life. It's your life. The instruction. Then the single-minded or single-pointed intelligence can be something that you have, and that's what Prabhupada had. That's what carried him. And there's another very nice element to this, and that's compassion. There's so many ways of describing his compassion, and I'll just share two of them, although as I'm saying two of them, with many coming to mind. One of the books, if you haven't read it yet, biography about Prabhupada and his disciples, read Yogeshwar's book, Swami in a Strange Land. And another one is Jamuna's biography, it's a two-part, and that's Life of Pure Devotion, or something like that. And I had very little association with Jamuna, only till towards the very end. And we were attending a japa retreat together. And then on another occasion, and she shared with me the same story. Quickly. Her telling the story takes much longer than mine. So I'll give you the shortened version. As you know, Jamuna had a very wonderful singing voice. And she was attracted with great love for Srila Prabhupada. And one of the reasons she was attracted with great love for Srila Prabhupada, because of who he was, but also the quality of his compassion. She shared, and she had tears in her eyes as she was describing. Prabhupada was conducting a Pandal program, and so Prabhupada requested Jamuna and one other Mataji, I can't remember which one it was, to come and join him to participate in the Pandal program. And those of you that are from India know, trains in India generally aren't on time. Sometimes they're on time. Often they're not on time, and sometimes they're hours late. Not a little different than the West. When the train was to arrive, Prabhupada was on the platform waiting. Their spiritual master was on the platform waiting for them with garlands for both of them. And Prabhupada then escorted them from the train platform to the room that he had arranged and saw to it that the room was properly set up, like their VIPs, his disciples, and showed them around the room and made sure that they were comfortable and showed them the key, and so they could assist him in the Pandal program that he was the guest of honor of. Her heart just melted. because of just that gesture, small thing, but loving gesture. And the whole exchange that she had with Prabhupada was like that. So another similar one is Prabhupada's story. But on this tour, she knew it as, you know, the World Harinam Sankirtan Tour. That's what Prabhupada was calling it. Devotees from Europe and Australia and America came and went throughout India. So they were at one place for some time, and again, those of you that are from India, you know, buildings are very institutional sometimes, and it's like one of these really old buildings with thick walls. And so they had their morning program in a hall that was kind of sterile and institutional-like, and Prabhupada was seated at one end, up very early chanting japa. So Jamuna, knowing that that was Prabhupada's program habit, she got up very early before everybody else, and being a Mataji, she sat quietly, paid obeisances, and sat quietly at the other end. Just feeling, this is wonderful. And here with Prabhupada, we're just chanting japa together. But couldn't get better than this. And then suddenly Prabhupada stopped chanting, and he looked up and saw her and said, "Who is that?" Said, "Jamuna." Prabhupada said, "You come." And, you know, had her sit. And so they were sitting together chanting japa in this big hall early in the morning before everybody else was in. And then it became a daily program. This went on for some number of days, or close to a week. And then one morning Prabhupada, Jamuna got up enough courage to ask Prabhupada, "What is your favorite bhajan?" And he said, "Why would you like to know?" "Because I like bhajans, I'd like to sing that bhajan, learn that bhajan that's your favorite bhajan." So he told her, then he showed her how he would sing that bhajan, right on the spot. And then he asked her, "And what's your favorite bhajan?" And she said, and he had her saying, and can you imagine? This is the loving exchange between, the compassion between our founder Acharya and his followers. Compassion is the message I want to share. What was in his heart? It was compassion. And his compassion showed in different ways, but indomitable compassion. And I'll give two contrasting ones. One of the issues in modern society was an issue at that time as well, and that's discrimination, particularly racial discrimination, but discrimination of different kinds. So, Devamrita Maharaj recently shared this with us, that one time Srila Prabhupada was visiting in Detroit, where there's lots of African American people in Detroit, and he called Premarnava, our godbrother Premarnava, into his room. And Prabhupada said to Premarnava, of course, a number of things, but he said, "Please do something for your people. They're suffering so much." And Prabhupada was crying. Now, Prabhupada wasn't identifying on the platform of the body. But there are, knowing very well, there are persons that are on the platform of thinking of themselves on the platform of the body, and because of various reasons, they were in a suffering condition. The ghettos of Detroit aren't nice. Then contrastingly, it's a long story, but again, make it short. Bhakti-tirtha Swami, I've heard him tell this story 3 times, where Bhakti-tirtha Swami was born and raised in the ghettos of Cleveland. And when he was a young man, just for self-defense, he carried a gun. He didn't use it, but it was, if you didn't carry a gun, you were bullied, so he carried a gun so he wouldn't be bullied. So that was the kind of upbringing he had. But because of the civil rights movement during that time, it was encouraged by the government, and Ivy League schools did this. They gave free They gave free tuition to persons from the African American community that were qualified students, even although they could not afford the tuition at Ivy League schools. So Bhaktitirtha Swami qualified and got full scholarship at Princeton University. And in the course of living at Princeton University, he became the valedictorian of his graduating class and the president of the student body in his senior year of school, on his way for a super career. But something happened. Sudanu Prabhu from New Vrindavan and a group of devotees from New York were visiting colleges, and one of them was Princeton University. He got a copy of Prabhupada's Ishopanishad. He read it and he became intrigued. And so he wanted to find out more about the person who wrote the book, Prabhupada. And so he found out the address. Princeton isn't so far from New York. He came to New York and found out that Prabhupada was soon going to be visiting in New York. And so he stayed around and met Srila Prabhupada, became his disciple, and then later came to reveal his heart, had a private discussion with Prabhupada, where he said, Prabhupada, unfortunately, in the Hare Krishna movement, although the teachings and the ideals are very high, there's racial discrimination. And the way that he tells the story, I'm not doing justice to it, it was a big deal for him. Like, how is my spiritual master going to address this question? In your organization, this Hare Krishna movement, the international society that's your creation, there's racial discrimination. And Prabhupada's answer fixed him up right into the sky. Prabhupada's answer was something to the effect that if you feel disturbed by their racial discrimination, you're no better than they are. Something to that effect. You buy into, I am this body, and they're buying into, I am this body, and their body type is different than your body type, and they're disturbed by your body type, and you're disturbed by their being disturbed by your body type. You're no better than they are. Whoa. You're not the body. And that's not only our teaching, that's how you should live. Now go back to the other. Prabhupada was very compassionate when speaking to Premarnava about people of color, as they say these days, and do something to help them. They're suffering. Compassion, and then this other type of compassion for one who's a leader. And if you're going to lead, then you can't be leading in the groupism mode or the bodily conception mode. You have to be beyond that. So Prabhupada certainly saw, and certainly he was a leader, and he went beyond it. Now, he reached out to his community, but he reached out far beyond his community because he also embodied that message of the mood of our founder Acharya, which was driven by compassion. So in addition to instruction of his spiritual master, there was deep, profound compassion. And one of those manifestations of compassion, now I'm going to move into a third topic, and that is Prabhupada's composing Srimad-Bhagavatam. I was giving a morning class in Potomac, I don't know, last summer or something like that. And in the audience were Haridas and Anutama and Rukmini and a number of very senior devotees. At the end, question and answer time, and Rukmini asked me, so many years you've been involved in Krishna consciousness, and I'm sure there's something that's been inspiring you. And what is that? What has helped sustain you in Krishna consciousness through all these years? I had never been asked that question, but it was a really easy question to answer. I said two things: gratitude and Srimad-Bhagavatam. It's a long story, but it's very clear to me that Srila Prabhupada risked his life, literally, to give Krishna consciousness to persons he didn't even know, me being one of them. And my life was profoundly affected beyond ways that I could even understand it when I did have that realization. And with a deep sense of gratitude that hasn't waned. Because gratitude doesn't leave you. It grows and grows, and gratitude is the seed of love. So how can you stay fixed unless there's love? Not conditional, but unconditional. So thick and thin kind of love. Starting with gratitude. And that gratitude again is having received the gift of the compassionate founder Acharya, who came to give to people he didn't even know the opportunity to become perfected in life. The first time that I had interaction with Srila Prabhupada, and the second time. First time was at the university, long story, make it short. I was passing through the student union, going to see a friend, from one side to the other side. And as I was passing through, there was a crowd around the conference room called the Miller Fillmore Room in the student union. And I was curious, what's the crowd of people around the door, so I wiggled through the crowd and went inside. And there was Srila Prabhupada and Allen Ginsberg chanting. Allen Ginsberg with his long hair and beard doing the Allen Ginsberg program. And Prabhupada was playing kartals and chanting. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know who they were. I had seen pictures of Allen Ginsberg. But it was a short encounter. I came in, halfway through or towards the end. They completed the chanting. Prabhupada spoke very briefly because people are intoxicated off the walls and across the ceiling. So they couldn't pay attention to what he was saying, so he spoke very simply. But my life changed, and I didn't know that until later. But just hearing, there was some willingness to receive, but I didn't even know what I was receiving. But the power of hearing the holy name spoken by a pure devotee changed my life, and the life of many. The second time, being in Prabhupada's personal association, was at JFK, because in 1970, summer of 1971, it wasn't TSA, so when people arrived at a gate, you could go right to the gate. So there's photos, a group of devotees, maybe 100 plus, went, and we were, pretty civilized. So we sat down calmly and sedately and waiting at the gate. And at that time, they didn't have jetways. You could see the plane come in. People would come down the stairway, like it happened in India sometimes, and walk across the tarmac and up a set of stairs and into the terminal. So we saw the plane come in, we saw Prabhupada come down, and we stood up and started kirtan instead of sitting, standing. And then when Prabhupada came out of the gate, it went wild. Conch shells, gongs, wampers, many mridangas, jumping, flower petals. The security thought we went nuts. And then we took Prabhupada to a lounge. I didn't know this was arranged, but it was pre-arranged. There were 3 reporters. One was asking the lead question. Listen carefully. The reporter said, Swamiji, you've come to this country some years ago. You now have many followers and centers around the country and other places in the world. You must have come to this country with some message. Would you like to share with us, Swamiji, what is your message? Microphone. Now, if you're a world acharya, what's the message you're going to give? What's the intention of such a personality? Prabhupada's answer: I've come to teach you who you are because you have forgotten. And then explained a few things from Bhagavad Gita. But that's like a little sutra. It's just a packaged statement. To understand who you are is a lot. We're spirit soul, we're part of Krishna, we have an eternal relationship with Krishna, we have a particular rasa with Krishna, we belong in the spiritual world, we don't belong. There's so many unpacked teach you who you are message. Because we forgot them. And that was the intention. So if we want to assist our founder Acharya, we need to know what his intention was, and then according to our capacity, we help him fulfill his intention to teach people who they are. And one of the main methods was through his book publication and distribution. If you read the purposes of ISKCON, number 7 is for all the above 6. One thing to help all the above 6. And one thing is the publication and distribution of literature that fulfills all the above. So we have some sense of Srimad-Bhagavatam that I'd like to encourage persons here to consider. Either taking a set home with you if you don't have one in your home already, or consider somebody that doesn't have one and you'd like them to have one. And there's a thought behind this, 2 thoughts behind it. And there's 19 minutes left. I'm trying to make sure I get everything done. How many here know, by name at least, Vaisheshika Prabhu? Okay, a lot of devotees. Those of you that don't, you're unfortunate. And maybe your life will become fortunate, and one day he'll come and visit here, and you'll get to his association, you'll understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. Because Vaisheshika Prabhu is an empowered globjaman. He's full of juice. And you just bump into him and you get, juicy. And the juice that you get is the enthusiasm to see that Prabhupada's books become distributed. And one of the global efforts of Vaisheshika Prabhu to increase book distribution, you can go look it up, gomatsya.com, gomatsya.com, explains for people from his experience and the people that he works with experience, many people from India, he told us this little story. They do door-to-door in San Jose or Silicon Valley. And there was this apartment building. Over here was an apartment of Indian people that are Hindu Gujaratis largely, and some others. And over there was a Muslim place where Muslim people mainly was in that apartment building. They went to this one over here, and people would say, oh, I know all about Krishna. No, thank you. And they went over there to the place where they don't know all about Krishna. They invited them in and they brought in their friends, and they bought many sets of Srimad-Bhagavatam. So he then put 2 and 2 together and got 4 and said, really people who think, many people think They have appreciation for the wisdom of the Vedas. So we want to engage those persons, and many of those persons here in this room appreciate the value of Vedic wisdom. For what purpose? Among others, purpose number 1 stated in ISKCON, to check or counteract the imbalance of values within society today. Is there an imbalance of values in society today compared to what the values could be, should be, would be? Great imbalance. And what is one of the ways of correcting that is systematically training and educating people in the science of Krishna consciousness, largely through the distribution of books, or one of the principal ways. So this gomuksha.com is inviting persons who think I know all about Krishna, or that I have appreciation and value the Vedic wisdom, the potency and the potential of fulfilling that purpose of our founder Acharya, the intention of ISKCON and its members to help preserve and further proper balance of this imbalance of values in society in general by making Vedic wisdom available. It's a nice message. It's a nice, join the party. Join the party that's promoting the preservation and furtherance of Vedic wisdom in the world. To help those that understand there is an imbalance and those that are empowered to do it, our founder Acharya in a very unique way, and the medium for that is his literature. So listen to this. Hearing this message that Vaisheshika Prabhu was encouraging us, ISKCON members in North America, to take up, we took it up. I was in Chicago at the time. I just shared this with Piari. Using that inspiration, it's not just a behavior or a sales pitch. It's something that once it goes in your heart, this is what our founder Acharya wanted for the world. And a medium for that is this transcendental wisdom, Vedic wisdom, the cream, the ripened fruit of all the tree of Vedic knowledge, Srimad-Bhagavatam. So we encourage people that don't have a set of Srimad-Bhagavatams to please take it. And those that have and appreciate Vedic wisdom, find some people that don't have and make a gift. Vaisheshika Prabhu said they visited one of these Islamic ladies who was a PhD in something or other. She got so inspired, she said, I know 7 people, let's go. And he took them to 7 people, and 7 sets of Srimad-Bhagavatams were sold just because of that message that I just shared. The Vedic wisdom wasn't even her own tradition. She appreciated the value of the Vedic wisdom. She had heard of it. She had some modest understanding. Anyway. So, in Chicago, the Chicago temple from Janmashtami, that was our message, this Bhadra Purnima, because the Purnima that just passed, this Bhadra Purnima, the Bhagavatam, the last chapter, Shukadeva Goswami is glorifying the Bhagavatam, says that one who gives a gift of Srimad-Bhagavatam on Bhadra Purnima on a golden throne, so we made some golden thrones, 30 sets of Srimad-Bhagavatam were distributed. And we have a suburban center that Piari never even heard of, called Naperville. You ever heard of Naperville, Illinois? There's a beginning center in Naperville, Illinois, and they distributed 50. 50. New center, 50. Now, how long has Boston been around? Long time. So I would encourage, so that's 80 sets in 2 weeks. I would encourage the persons here to consider taking home the Srimad-Bhagavatam set, and or thinking of somebody that doesn't have the Srimad-Bhagavatam set, and you would like to further the cause of giving Vedic wisdom to help check the imbalance of values in society today. And you're going to hear more about this, especially if Vaisheshika Prabhu ever does come and visit. It's going to be encouraged worldwide. Vaisheshika Prabhu said he visited the UK just before coming to Chicago to attend our meeting we just had. And they got really excited. They have a big list of membership, and they're going to work their membership to encourage all their members to direct them to their friends and encourage them to take Srimad-Bhagavatam sets to check the imbalance of values in society today through the furtherance of Vedic wisdom. Isn't that nice? So I guess what I should do is say, is there anybody here that feels inspired to do either A or B? Take a Srimad-Bhagavatam set. Or find somebody that you would like to see one, and they have any, pick your language, and they'll find a set. There's sets in Chinese. Did you know that? I'll share with you. Then I'm going to do one other thing and then finish. The Chinese BBT have translated the entire 12 cantos of Srimad-Bhagavatam into Chinese. And they gave the Chinese translation to the publishing branch of the Chinese government, which means it's the government. And they read it. And they not only read it, they checked it to see if it's something that they have concern about. And you should know the Chinese government doesn't want propagation of religion. Even when they allow it, they check it. Skipping the details. 3 years later, they approved the contract. They signed a contract with the BBT. We, the government, was the government printing press, but the government signed a contract that they'll print Prabhupada's Srimad-Bhagavatam in Chinese. So when devotees sell sets, I attended an ISKCON 50 event in Beijing, and there were, forget the number now, something like 25 to 30 sets, and we had to go to the government to get the 25 to 30 sets because that's the authorized versions. And we have to come with, they printed at their expense, we didn't have to front the money, they did it, but to get them we have, with their markup, then we pay them, and it's you don't have any problem with the government because it's government approved. Srimad-Bhagavatam says. And in this way, Krishna consciousness will be spread in China. And here we are in America, where Prabhupada came following the order of Bhaktisiddhanta to give Krishna consciousness right here. So, I won't ask the embarrassing question, but I'll ask you to consider, and then right after we're done, out in the hall, there's some number of sets, 5, 6, 7 Srimad-Bhagavatam sets, and if you run out, they'll send one to your home. Please consider that it's a serious appeal as a service to our founder Acharya to help him with the intention of his coming to this country and giving that gift. Now there's one other thing, that's the final thing. Another intention or desire of our founder Acharya was to have a constitution. It's not so well known, but he requested devotees long, long ago, in the late 60s, early 70s, he wanted a constitution. And you may or may not know it, but we don't have one. And so in 2007, there was some effort by a group of devotees along with some other things, to work on a constitution. They a lot of work. Writing a constitution isn't 1, 2, 3. And they've been working on it and working on it and working on it. And one of the sticking points that it got stuck was, who's the Constitution for? Meaning, who's a member of ISKCON? Would you like to write a definition or description of who's a member of ISKCON? Good luck. And get the entire GBC to have consensus around it. Good luck. Well, it took 3 or 4 years to get that. And one fine day at a GBC meeting, led by Konteya Prabhu, we got through the exercise of a definition of a member. It was very simple. Some were broad, some were narrow, some were this, all initiated devotees and all kinds of other things that there wasn't consensus. But the statement goes like this: I accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as is described in Bhagavad Gita, and given to us through the teachings of ISKCON's founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Something very innocuous and simple like that. Then there's another little clause that says, although I recognize this doesn't give me any rights, like legal rights to sue ISKCON, doesn't entitle me to any rights, but I would like to, nonetheless, like to volunteer service according to my capacity to ISKCON. And that's the statement. That's not verbatim, but it's like that. So if any of you feel, yeah, I can make that statement, then there's this program. That was the year before, finally agreed on that definition of a member. It was supposed to be during ISKCON 50, like sent around the world, and it couldn't find a mechanism that seemed to work for everybody. So here we are, and there's now a system, ISKCONconnection.org. You can go online and do that, or there's a devotee here who will assist you, if that's all right. I checked this with our temple president, so it's all right. And it'll take about 15 or 17 seconds, and you're a formal member. And then 3 things. Once a week you get some little news. If you give an email address, you don't have to give an email address to be a member, but if you do and wish to receive, they'll tell you, like, how the devotees doing in Florida after this hurricane passed through. Or, they had a big festival in Siberia during the summer, and what was that like? And over there in Malaysia, something, and they opened a new temple, or whatever it is. To connect people around the world, going over next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, people all over the world, proliferating numbers of ISKCON, connect them to ISKCON. ISKCON connection. That's one of the purposes. Then another is really nice. Those who sign up, their name will be engraved in a copper plate and placed beneath the feet of Panchatattva when Panchatattva become installed in the TOVP. So you'll get the feet of the name, at the feet of Panchatattva. They're big. Panchatattva's really big. Big base. So lots of names. And then third is some similar gesture in micro engraving. I don't know how they plan to do it. Something similar at Prabhupada Samadhi, at the feet of Srila Prabhupada. It's symbolic, but it's a gesture of submission to the feet of Panchatattva and Srila Prabhupada, and an effort to bring a connection between the world of devotees going out over a period of time. Have you ever been asked the question, how many Hare Krishna people are there in the world? I've been asked a lot. You know what the answer is? I don't know. So we'd like to know. At least those that signed up, we can say these many members. So, could you stand up? So, this devotee is going to stand so they can see who you are. He's authorized. if he approaches you while you're standing in line for prasadam and saying, would you like to enroll as a member of ISKCON, it's okay, you can say yes, and it's very quick. And we encourage you, if you so desire, to make a statement like that. We can honor you in those ways mentioned. Okay, so it's 2 minutes before the conch blows. Piara, you want to add anything? Thoughts? Prabhupada Festival tomorrow?
Well, I hope we have on Tuesday.
Oh, Tuesday, yeah.
We have to talk with Molly about that.
Okay. Well, he's staying on just for that purpose, and I hope you can, some of you will be able to join. It's early in the morning, but once a year, early in the morning is okay, and to honor our founder Acharya at his arrival here in this important city of Boston. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
As Nara said, you want to